Hello, Chain Gang, and welcome back to the Four Chains Travel and our Four Chains in Italy playlist.
I was blown away not just by Bologna, but by the University of Bologna campus that is such an important part of the city. I know YouTubers love to exaggerate how great everything is, and Angie and I have probably cost ourselves a lot of subscribers by taking pride in not being that way, so I want to be specific about the University of Bologna, even though it would be difficult to exaggerate my love for our experience that we are about to share. The truth is that the 5 best universities in the world to earn a degree from are, in order, Harvard, which you see here, followed by MIT, Stanford, Oxford, and Cambridge. However, I would rank the University of Bologna number 1 for best college in the world to visit and number 2 for most historical importance. And my intention is for this video to convince you of those rankings. So please feel free to let me know in the comments if you agree or disagree. Angie and I were fortunate enough to be present for the graduation ceremony for U of B, as the locals call it. And as is the case for most of the graduation ceremonies, it was held in Piazza Maggiore. And just off the piazza is the Archiginnasio, which for many visitors is the only university building they visit, even though it has not officially been part of U of B since 1838, when it became the municipal library. However, between 1562, when it was commissioned by the Pope himself, and 1838, it was considered the most important campus building. If you saw our walking tour video, you saw a gigantic library, a short walk from the Archiginnasio, but this is actually the largest library in Emilia-Romagna with over 850,000 volumes. 2 separate, beautiful staircases lead to the most popular part of the building, which are the heraldic halls, containing over 6,000 coats of arms representing students of distinction. Contained in this complex is also an anatomical theater and the Church of Santa Maria dei Bulgari. On a side note, when we left the building, we could hear a roaring crowd back at the Piazza Maggiore, so we returned. If you are a subscriber, you have probably already heard us avoid talking about religion, politics, or the mafia when in Italy and telling you should do the same. You should know that around the campus, that list is just the mafia. They very much cherish free speech, and when this man interrupted the ceremony, they actually allowed him on the microphone. We heard one official explain that he doesn't agree with the statements being made, but it was very important that he be allowed to make them. Fair enough, but we left the U.S. to avoid politics, so we headed to the main campus. There's plenty to see on the short walk from Archiginnasio to the University of Bologna, including Mercato di Mezzo and Osteria da Sole, which you saw in our restaurant tour of Bologna, and Le Due Torri, which you saw in our walking tour of Bologna. The first spot that you come onto on campus is the Piazza di Giuseppe Verdi. There is this restaurant that the students eat at. I believe, tell me if I'm wrong in the comments, that the food is subsidized by the government because it is by far the cheapest restaurant in town. If you are in your 50s like us and you try to order there, they will at first rebuff you, but if you're willing to say, "Capisco, sono uno studente della vita," they will laugh and allow you to pay student prices. Don't say capisce, because that is from The Godfather, and that is saying, "Do you understand?" and is kind of rude. Everybody gets there early.
This is the oldest student union in the history of the world. University of Bologna.
There are 2 spots in the University of Bologna that a lot of tourists miss because they're technically for students and faculty only, but as Wayne Gretzky's dad said, 100% of the shots you don't take don't go in, so I think it's worth making an effort. And the first spot is at 35 Via Zamboni, and it is the University Library. I approached the librarian and I said, "Per favore, se ci fosse la possibilità che io possa vedere I libri, il mio cuore sarebbe pieno, which is, please, if there's any chance I could see the books, my heart would be full. She knew exactly what books I was talking about and was very happy to show us.
It is very important to be curious in life, and it really helps to speak Italian and be polite in Italy. I'm going to show you guys something. This is the first Bible ever printed in Italy, printed by one of Gutenberg's colleagues. So when you see the intricacy of the letters here, it's when you're in school you learn that the Gutenberg is important because he invented the printing press. That's not actually true. There were plenty of printing presses, but what made books like this possible was Gutenberg improved on the printing press by inventing movable type. So it cut the amount of labor involved in printing a book.
So many more copies could be printed quickly that way.
Yeah, well, quickly is a relative thing, but yeah, absolutely.
Wow, thank you for sharing.
Yeah. This is a tragedy written by Sophocles right next to an opera written by Aristotle. And this is the Aeneid written by Virgil.
I did ask to see the Cospi Codex, which apparently is called the Codex Cospi, and perhaps my error was the reason I was denied, but they do have it. If you are wondering if they could sell these manuscripts and never have to worry about budgets again, the answer is yes and no. Their value is approximately $450 million, but there are several Italian laws that would never allow them to be sold, so let's call them priceless in more ways than one. These books are really cool, and it's part of the reason why I think this is the best college in the world to visit. There's a lot more of those reasons to come, but it's also part of the reason I would rank it number 2 in terms of historical importance. Now, I have Cambridge University as number 1. Real simple, Isaac Newton attended Cambridge's Trinity College, and he returned to teach there, and Newton is the person who has arguably changed human existence more than any other person who has ever lived, and the other people that historians might argue are in that top 5 most influential list, people like Jesus, Muhammad, Augustus Caesar, Buddha, etc. None of those people attended any college. So, if you have different people that might be in the 5 most influential humans, go ahead and drop it in the comments.
It's apparently il premio edition de Dante Alighieri, Comedy Divina. Whoa. Oh my goodness.
Wow.
This is the Divine Comedy by Dante Alighieri. The, meaning the first one. Copy number 1.
This book resides here because Dante was educated here. It is the single most important and influential work of fiction ever written, and there is not a close second. Prior to the Divine Comedy, all great authors we would now refer to as Italian wrote in Latin. Dante wrote the way he spoke, which was a fragmented dialect that was primarily Tuscan with influences from other regions. In those days, believe it or not a single Italian had access to Netflix or HBO or even YouTube, so they read books. The Divine Comedy was like The Sopranos, Game of Thrones, and Stranger Things combined if those shows had a lot more sex and violence. This dialect was so pervasive that it became used not just by authors, but all Renaissance artists, and it is now known simply as the Italian language. If you think that there is another work of fiction that is more influential than one that created one of the world's great languages, go ahead and sound off in the comments. But its influence goes way beyond that. When people think about hell, they're not thinking about the hell of the Bible, they're thinking about the hell in the Divine Comedy. When you see a Renaissance painting or sculpture of hell, it's probably not from the New or Old Testament, it's from Dante. If I try to quote him, I'll get it wrong, but T.S. Eliot felt there had not been a single book, television show, or movie made in his lifetime that cannot trace its roots to either Shakespeare or Dante. Speaking of priceless, our next goal was to see the historic frescoes in Manfredi Hall, and that ran into a snag when we found ourselves not among the groups allowed to enter. We decided to go there anyways, as it was a short walk to Via Zamboni 31, but when we got there, the door was locked. While planning our next stop, a man with a suit opened the door, and we just followed him in. He signed in at a desk with an armed security guard, and so we did the same, and that's where our luck ran out, as we did not have an appointment. We explained that we had read that Nicholas Copernicus wondered at the beautiful frescoes inside, and we would like to see them as well. Just then, this gentleman you see in the video asked us in Italian if we had also earned the right by changing humanity's understanding of the universe as Copernicus had done. I explained, well, we hadn't done that, but we did have a YouTube channel. He thought that was funny and agreed to reward our curiosity, but he would have to show us around as we can't be in there unattended. That works for me. No flash photography is allowed to preserve the frescoes, which include Tibaldi's The Odyssey, which adorns the ceilings of the rooms that Marconi both studied and later taught in. They are also frescoes about the myth of Prometheus, which you would be familiar with if you have seen the Alien movies.
Get away from her, you bitch.
Did you see how I added a couple more votes for Bologna being one of the most important universities ever, as Copernicus is one of the 25 most important people who ever lived, and Marconi would be in the next 25 bracket, and they both taught and attended the University of Bologna. And also, Aliens is such a good movie. Good news, the rest of our tour of the University of Bologna, you do not need subterfuge or to speak Italian to go to, including the Courtyard of Hercules that you see here, and our next destination, which is the Natural History Museum. Now, for those of you new to the channel, Angie and I grew up in the Washington, D.C. area, which happens to hold the largest natural history museum in the world, and to our delight, as children, it was always free to enter, and all you have to do is walk around the corner to this museum, and it is also free to enter, and it has the distinction of being the world's first natural history museum.
So this is the first room that you will see when you enter in. It's got a really cool display on the ceiling. And essentially what this is in the early days of Bologna, which is the early days of any university, obviously, they did a lot of natural sciences. And in the 16th century, Ulysses Aldrovandi and some other professors that were naturalists, doctors, and pharmacists decided to do what Aristotle and Pliny the Elder did and study the natural sciences. And they went out and studied animals and plants in nature rather than just in books. And they assembled their collections, and those collections still exist. And they're in this incredible room. Wait till you see what they have in here.
It's a skeleton of a hammerhead fish, the hooves of a moose, a lobster fossil. It's huge. That's about 10 inches across.
Okay, so what you see here is where we're standing here in Bologna University, and this is the journey that those scientists traveled, starting from here, from Bologna. You see Modena is very close in the same region, and these are all of the places they visited to study these natural sciences, all the way down to Ragusa in Sicilia, in Sicily. And you can see here, this is late 16th century, in the 1500s. This is a picture of this same room that we are in here with all of the samples of things. So it's not all that different. There's been obviously more added to it.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So if you look around here, obviously the heart of the artistic Renaissance was Florence, but the heart of scientific Renaissance was Bologna. And that's what's really celebrated in this museum.
Whoa, what do we have here?
Tiger. For you LSU fans. This is
Look
the
at
large.
the size of that paw.
This is the large intestine of an elephant. That's why you,
Stand next to it there so we can get a sense of the scope. Oof.
When people use that expression, he shits bigger than me, this thing actually does.
Okay. What is this here? Can you?
They're comparing the different anatomies of different races, sort of like in the Jared Diamond book, A World Until Yesterday, which I recommend highly. This is actually the arm of the first director of the Museum of Anatomy, and he had an accident, and so they thought, well, geez, when life gives you lemons, make lemonade. That's 100% true.
I don't want to drink that lemonade.
No. Look at the ceiling. The ceiling that you see up there tells the story of Camilla from Virgil's Aeneid. It depicts her stories. She was pretty powerful. A woman, but she did some killing in her day. I don't want to spoil the book. This reminds me of that Game of Thrones room where the guy who couldn't get killed by the whites, what was his name? His father was really mean to him, and he took the sword.
Sam, won't he come for it?
He can bloody well try.
And here's some diaries of actual Pope Benedict XIV, who paid for all of this. Wow, I mean, I just can't believe it.
Please stop by this theater to understand why Pope Benedict XIV was instrumental in the primary reason for the university's importance. In an era when the Pope's authority was far greater than it is today, he had this crazy idea that planet Earth would be enriched if women were allowed a college education and maybe even could become professors. This may seem obvious to some of you, but it took centuries for most colleges to realize he was right. Some influential achievements, you could argue, would have been achieved by someone soon after if the person credited had not existed. This is not one of those achievements. In fact, in the year I was born, 1968, most Ivy League schools, such as Princeton, Dartmouth, and Yale, were still not co-ed. Anne Hathaway might have been born the Princess of Zenobia in 1982, but even as late as that year, Columbia was still not co-ed.
And around the corner, there's translations of Sanskrit and other languages, some of which still exist, some of which don't. I feel like this is the kind of place that Indiana Jones would go to do research. This is like an autodidact's heaven.
Although it looks more like a place Harry Potter would be doing research.
Exactly. Keep in mind, this is a library, and take a look. You're studying, and this is the room you're studying in. Unbelievable. Oh, this is the catalog room where you look up where the books are located in the library.
As we sign out of this wonderful place, please sign into the comments and let us know your personal ranking, with my final piece of evidence being that Enzo Ferrari also attended the University of Bologna. Angie and I are headed to Madrid and Barcelona, so if you'd like to join us, please go ahead and subscribe to the 4 Chains Travel.